What's going on, everybody? Today's episode features attorneys from Banner Legal Group who represent plaintiffs in an active federal investigation involving TikTok, Fanatics, and the NFL. The allegations in this case include antitrust violations and claims of coordinated account bans targeting independent sellers and breakers on TikTok. These are allegations. Nothing has been adjudicated. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice, and everything you hear today reflects the perspective of the legal team bringing the case. That said, this story affects real people in this hobby, and you deserve to hear it directly from counsel. So let's get into it. All right, for anyone who hasn't seen the website yet, again, gentlemen, thank you for joining. Would you give us a quick overview of who Banner Legal is and what brought everyone to this specific fight in the sports card and breaking space?
Cary? Yeah. Banner Legal, we're a mass law firm that specifically helps injured parties. Unlike a class action law firm, if someone was harmed by a pharmaceutical drug or a vehicle that had a defective part that ended up taking a life or causing serious injury, that's what Banner Legal does. We do it for the mass, not just for the individual. We've done Roundup, Actos, been involved in litigation in every major litigation throughout the United States now. The people on this phone for the past 30 years. So the breaking industry was brought to my attention because I had invested in several of these companies back in November of 2024. And, I love sports and several people approached me to invest, and I did. But right away, I started noticing that, these crazy violations of trademark and copyright infringement that didn't make any sense in the legal sense at all, under fair use and also under the terms of TikTok. We file the company corporate documents. We abide by their rules. We show that we have, like David Adams, a distributor. And, you start marketing your product and selling your product. But right away, as the company was growing and, and I was very impressed, the sports memorabilia industry with football helmets was booming at the time. And we were selling hundreds of thousands of dollars. But immediately we started getting interference and it made no sense. So I called John and Aaron and Jack Marshall, who's now on the phone, of our partners, and Jeremy Schaefer, who's also a partner with me in these, and said, does anyone have any connections with the NFL players here? And we reached out to them and told them that, what is going on here? Why are you violating people for trademark and claims when making no sense to us when you want to sell more products, and they're perfectly legal? And they adamantly denied ever being involved in doing that, which later we found out they were very involved in doing that. Like I have a helmet right here, and I can show you Green Bay Packers helmet. And if you look at it, it says NFL on the back, and it's Beckett certified, and it tells the date of the signature. But if you look closely, what looks different on it? The visor, right? We were violating people for putting visors on helmets, and it made no sense whatsoever. I mean, how is that a copyright trademark infringement? So under the policies of TikTok, and their policy states that the only people who can violate you is the owner of the trademark. And immediately, one of my companies was banned. My business partner reached out. And I'm going to keep the name, quiet for now, and contacted Steve, the head of sports memorabilia, Cary, and informed them that, asking why you were banned. And they came back with the NFL banned you. Well, why would the NFL? We had no idea they didn't ban us. And then in the next text, they stated it was Fanatics who did that. Well, Fanatics doesn't own the rights to memorabilia helmets. Riddell does. Until 2031. And the NFL had no right even going in there for that matter. Riddell owns the rights to those helmets. The helmets aren't altered in any way or done in any way. So we started investigating all of it and peeling the onion back and put the connection together that the NFL is a part owner of Fanatics. They own a substantial amount of Fanatics stock, along with some other major companies that had interest, not only in Fanatics, but also in TikTok. So, it wasn't hard to figure out that they were just pushing all the revenue to Fanatics. And it's easily proven. And it's not an isolated incident. We have hundreds of clients with the same story, just like mine. But in that same text, Brian had asked, how do we go live? When Cary and Steven said, are you willing to sign a Fanatics contract? And I felt like I was being extorted on that, right? So was it we were selling illegal products, or is it that you just want to get our revenue? Which one is it, right? And there's no due process whatsoever. There was no email from the NFL saying they violated us. Fanatics, there was no reasoning behind it. No explanation of why we were violated. And that's industry-wide. It's happening on anything Fanatics is selling. Any competition you're out there crush these poor people, and we're ruining lives at the end of the day. There's a human factor in this where people have lost their homes. There's some very severe cases, which we won't talk about at this time, but the financial devastations cost tens of thousands of people. It's disgusting. And they need to be held accountable for what they've done at the end of it.
Steve, and Cary's absolutely right on this, because when you look at the industry, it exploded as a result of the pandemic. When people were at home looking for something to do, everyone's into sports. The memorabilia market, went from a few $100 million collectively per year in the Brickstone corner store or wherever the store was in any given locale. When the pandemic hit, people confined to home, more and more were looking online in trading and various things. At the same time, TikTok's platform started to take off as well. So you have that synergy coming together. So a lot of folks started investing in the memorabilia market. And when they set up shop and they continued to follow the policies that were in place by TikTok, in other words, that you get more viewers directed to you the longer that you're participating in their program. So you create a seniority process that they have to continue and pay. And so over time, then they expand the market as well, because they're making more money than they ever made before, and it's growing. So they keep investing into that process. And just when they're at the peak, some of them are making upwards of $1 million a month. And it's incredible to see these small businesses suddenly, do so well. Then they get the legs kicked out from underneath them and they crash. And once they're removed from the platform, pursuant to the algorithm that's in place by TikTok, they can't recapture their position of seniority that they once had. So all those years that they paid into that to ensure that was theirs, and they were first in line, and they'd always get priority. Now they're at the back, they have to start all over again, right? And that's unfair. Now, the only way they can come back, of course, is if they agree to all the demands, which is you have to agree to exclusively purchase from TikTok, not from Fanatics. And you have to sell their products and so forth. And they supposedly there's some other arrangement worked out that had nothing to do with the original business plan that they had set up. And some of them are unable to recapture that and end up having to file bankruptcy because they have invested so much into this business in such a relatively short period of time that they went all in because it was so successful. It's almost like that. How would you compare it to, like, for instance, a setup where they're, I don't call it a bait and switch, but they're pulled into the program and they get, once they get to a certain point, all of their viewership, everything gets redirected over to Fanatics. That's what happened. They were hustled. That's the best way to explain it. So from their perspective, now, so that is a major issue here, and the way they went about it. No due process. When they signed actually onto the platform, TikTok's policy specifically had a provision in there which made sure that the process was fair. Before you were removed from the platform, they would give you an opportunity to explain a position, whether you're in violations of any of their policies. In this particular case, what happened was they were told they were infringing upon the intellectual property rights that belonged to Fanatics, which was assigned the intellectual property in exclusive distribution for the NFL. That was not true. And these breakers were not provided with any opportunity to show that it wasn't true. Specifically, what Cary mentioned earlier, Riddell, when it comes to these helmets, Riddell is the one that has the exclusive intellectual property rights for the sale of those products. The second item is they're buying off the secondary market. They buy it from Riddell. They can do whatever they want with it. Sort of like comparing it to a Mickey. Cary and I were talking about this earlier. A 55 Mickey Mantle card. So are those same restrictions going to be placed on the resale of those items? No, right? But without checking with these breakers to find out or get to the truth of the matter, what really was going on, they did it, and it's a reason for it. Yeah, with that.
So what, Stephen? One of the things I wanted to say is that as attorneys, obviously we're explaining all of this in the form of how our allegations have taken shape in court already. So there's a case on file in the Central District of California that has all of these allegations in them. That it basically, our lawsuit alleges certain things, and we look forward to having this issue ultimately decided by the court, and we look forward to presenting the evidence related to this through discovery. But our lawsuit alleges that TikTok, Fanatics, and the NFL coordinated to eliminate independent sports memorabilia sellers from one of the most important online marketplaces by using false exclusivity claims, like John was just explaining, and platform restrictions.
Wow, that's a lot. So just to kind of surmise, I guess, for the layman, individual like myself who would buy into, is this covering helmets, autographed helmets, custom painted helmets, all of the above, or is there some, does it differ depending on it? I mean, or were they just coming down on everybody who was doing any kind of memorabilia?
It's all of the above.
Okay. And so I don't know if you can answer, but how many breakers, or even anybody involved in this space, be it somebody that customizes helmets or anything like that, have contacted you guys, reporting like sudden suspensions or anything like that?
I can answer that for you because, there's been thousands of them, and it's only getting worse. But you have to look, it's very important. If you look back at how Fanatics started and you look at the companies involved with Fanatics, I'm not going to mention any names right here. And look at TikTok, who bought TikTok, you're going to see a direct correlation in there. And, the reason for that is it's very obvious to me. I mean, TikTok was worried they were going to become a U.S. company. They made a deal with Fanatics, and they agreed to push all the revenue to them, part of that deal. And Fanatics went out and found some suitors to buy TikTok. And it's right there publicly on Google. You can go look it up. This isn't any, conspiracy theory or hearsay. It's very easy to connect the dots.
So I kind of stumbled upon this rabbit hole speaking with an individual. I do not believe he has had any contact with you, but his name's Rick Lewis. He owns Enigma Trading Company, and they do autographed helmets of multiple sorts in a mystery product form. And the people that they sell to were getting shut down. I know a lot of them would tell me that TikTok's appeal process was opaque and TikTok's unresponsive. Do you, as far as the legal status goes, if say I had a breaking platform, I get a message that says I'm being shut down for whatever reason they give, is the fact that it's very muddled and murky and hard to understand, does that matter legally at all? Or is that okay because, I signed an agreement jumping on their platform?
So there are two different scenarios. One was, you mentioned the latter, being sign an agreement to jump on the platform. Are you alluding to the demand or the being coerced into signing an agreement to go through Fanatics, or are you referring to the initial agreement?
Well, so I guess both. My main question is the first part of the question is, if I get a strike or a ban on my channel and then I try to ask why and I get no response, is that a problem with TikTok in general?
Yes, I'll answer that because on the owner side of the other businesses, yeah. So TikTok, if you do $100,000 a month or more, you are part of their compensation of them getting their 6%. They're supposed to give you an account representative. But it's amazing, intentionally, they don't give it to any of these breakers that are successful that aren't signed on Fanatics contracts. And you had a very good point. So if you don't have an account rep and you have a violation, well, who do you speak to? Maybe that's intentionally designed that way. Because why are all these people that are doing, 6 figures, 7 figures, and they don't bend the knee and they're banned? But if you find, anyone, and I don't want to talk bad about the breakers because people have bills to pay. Some of these people sign these contracts because they didn't want to go broke, that they were forced and induced in signing it, or they would lose their home. And they have a claim as well. Don't think they don't, because they were extorted at the end of the day. And they were told, if you don't sign it, you're done. But I will say this, that it's amazing when a person signs a Fanatics contract and these people have been in business 5 years, have a great reputation and, 50,000 followers, all of a sudden, all the traffic's diverted to a man selling a Fanatics product that didn't build the algorithm, that didn't have all these faults. About 100% guarantee he's not getting any violations. And he has an account rep. So the question.
I'm sorry, Cary.
My
I was going to say our complaint. Yeah. Our complaint alleges in great detail that all these defendants work together to reduce or eliminate competition in the live stream sports memorabilia market. So the defendants obviously denied those allegations and they haven't been proven yet. But we think in discovery, we're going to be able to show that our client, but also people like Cary and his business were treated in a similar fashion where they were basically pushed out of a business model that they helped create in the first place.
When I spoke to TikTok's counsel, they were trying to bring out, these violations, and they were infringing upon intellectual property and so on. And I asked directly to counsel. I said, did you look into who actually owns the rights or has the right to those intellectual property rights that you say were infringed? And the answer was, well, no. So, well, don't you think it would have been appropriate to allow the breakers to have a fair opportunity to show you that Fanatics did not have what they said they owned, which was those rights? And it was just sort of like silence. And then she came up with another theory that they were involved in gambling. So I asked,
She
well,
called
what are you
it.
talking about gambling? Explain to me what that is. Right. Yeah. It was laughter.
They just keep moving the Steve. They keep moving the goalpost. That's all they keep doing, intentionally to divert all funds and traffic to Fanatics. So whatever deal was made behind closed doors was made. And, John and Aaron are going to get to the bottom of it.
So with as many different TikTok breakers that have reached out to you, could one of you, if possible, walk me kind of through the process of what happens after the suspension? Like, when does the Fanatics exclusive offer or the phone call or the deal, whatever we're going to call it or whatever it is, when does that come in, and who's making that offer?
From my experience with what we went through on, I'll give you an example of that, the company, not the others that I was relating to earlier. It was literally 3 minutes later, the Fanatics contract was offered. And there's something very important too. They introduced us to Ethan Cole at Underrats on the Lark system. That's your internal system. Well, now TikTok's promoting Fanatics, a third party that they don't own, and saying if you sign this contract, we'll unwind the banning process and have you live tonight. He was ridiculous, So I'm not an isolated incident. This has happened across this entire industry. It's the exact way it's playing out. So they know full well who they're banning, and then they have their contact information and they're reaching out to them. It's insane.
Do we know if there was anything beyond helmets? Has anybody contacted you about maybe mystery products with jerseys or autographed jerseys or anything along those lines?
Yes, we're investigating a lot of other products this time. We have a lot of people that have called in too, and there's a lot more coming.
Our concern is that that TikTok and Fanatics, again, are working together, like we've alleged in our complaint regarding helmets, but that is now spreading to all other types of memorabilia because of the success at basically taking over market share. And that's another thing that we allege in the complaint, is that the market share of our client was basically taken away through this maneuver.
And can you imagine too, when you get, let's say some of our clients received on NFL letterhead a cease and desist. So you can imagine, to the average layperson, that's getting into the business or is in the business and they're doing really well, to suddenly have a cease and desist with a threat of litigation by the NFL, by TikTok, by Fanatics.
Yeah, now,
what do you do?
We can't mention names, but and I don't want to do that. I know John would want to do that. But for instance, let's just say that we have clients that did one-of-one artwork helmets, painted helmets, and they were violated by the NFL and sent cease and desist on one-of-one artwork, and they claim intellectual property rights, But yet Fanatics in helmets, right?
Right.
They're doing it today.
Yeah, and one of one artwork is something that everybody has recognized for years is a protected expression. In addition, it's past practice, and their entire industry is built on that. And they're using that, again, as our complaint alleges, to violate people for whatever reason possible in order to drive them down a funnel, in order to have them sign the agreement.
Correct. And the perfect example is Major League Baseball, for instance. They won't go after anybody for doing a custom bat or one-on-one and painting it. And they recognize that it's artwork. The NBA. So why is it that, the NFL is going after people for doing artwork that only promotes the NFL and makes them look even better and creates more sales, right? And the answer is because they own Fanatics. It's pretty simple,
Wow.
So it all goes back to, just follow the money and you're going to follow it right to, home base. And the problem here lies that what gets me so upset is a lot of these people ruin their lives, and they're hardworking Americans, and they're taking away their livelihood. Yeah, it's illegal, right? But they think that everyone's a redneck out there and they can't defend themselves. They're too little, and they're gonna go bully everybody, And I think they're wrong.
So I have a question. What do you guys, or how do you advise individuals who have already signed this exclusive agreement with Fanatics, or with to run the Under Wraps product, or whatever they may have agreed upon? Have they waived their right to a claim or to reach out to you guys, or are they SOL now?
No, they have claims. First of all, they signed under duress. When you're removed from that platform and suddenly your sales stop, you have no more revenue. You can't pay your bills. You have no choice. The only choice is to do what they say. So you're giving up, paying the extra amount of money, hoping that you can climb your way back in seniority, which you'll never do because you'll always be behind Fanatics. And we're still investigating, but what we're finding, and just in some of this, is that a lot of the viewers, followers of the former followers, for their sales platforms, were suddenly over it Riddell, and not, and then they're starting afresh. So they have claims. A lot of those claims they haven't been barred by the statute of limitations. In breach of contract, those extend out to how, as long as there's still a breach.
From the business side of it, and that's what some people are lucky enough, and I've been fortunate enough that I didn't need sports memorabilia, right? So I can say no. We were buying helmets in the private secondary market for $230, $300, eBay and otherwise, and that's another subject. And then boxing them, making it fair, and doing the breaks, and now you're forced to buy a helmet for $650, right?
Right. That's the other thing. The prices.
Well, wait a minute, John. I need to finish this though. It's very important. So initially, even to get involved with Fanatics, you have to pay $50,000. That's the minimum buy-in, right? And why is it set so high? Think about that. It's to get rid of all the competition. So you have to pay $50,000 to get a slab of helmets or a pallet of helmets. And then you're paying them $650 a helmet for an inferior product that will only have under 150 players out of the 18,000 retired. How does that work in breaking? Are you going to sell the same helmet every day? The same player?
And when you say 150 players, you mean 150 players that are under agreement with them to autograph?
Correct.
Okay.
So and a lot, but it comes back to this. If it's such a great product, they'd buy it. I'd buy it. If it was a great product, I'd buy it. It's not a great product. Unfortunately, it literally, I have a picture I'm going to send you. The Josh Allen helmet when Max started painting helmets. and it literally has a Japanese flag behind it. I didn't know Josh Allen was Japanese.
I didn't either.
It's not this one. Yeah, it's definitely not this one.
It's not that one. And now, and
No.
John brought up a good point. So then they're banning people for selling chrome helmets, right? Steven, they're banning people for selling chrome helmets because as of 2026, the NFL doesn't sell chrome helmets anymore. So they moved the goalpost again, right? So now the helmet that John has in his hand would be an example of a helmet that you want alive. And TikTok would come in and just shut you down. You didn't buy the helmet, inspect the helmet, won the serial number on the back, check it. And the helmet John has right there. When was that signed, John?
I think it was 2024.
Yeah. So that was signed in 2024. So we're back to the Mickey Mantle part. So just because you're not selling them now, no one else can sell the helmets you sold for 10 years and a half.
Right.
Right?
Is that pretty standard in across all industries, or is this somewhat unique to this new group?
This is unique. It's intentionally created once again to just drive all the competition away. And I can't believe Riddell hasn't sued them yet. I'll be honest with you.
That was another question that I had. How is there a question, or how can Fanatics say, or the NFL or whoever say that it's their property when Riddell has the rights?
They can't. Because let me tell you what the consideration was. So Riddell, in exchange for the intellectual property rights for the trademark, NFL and the membership teams and so forth, Riddell agreed to provide all the safety equipment for free. They're going to outfit every player in the entire league with their helmets, shoulder pads, whatever other protective equipment that they have. So that's the exchange. The NFL makes out big on this one, right? And now when they try to sell, when Riddell sells these helmets to the market out there, suddenly you got a third party, interfering with the sales. So their sales have to be down. It's suppressed.
Tremendous.
Right. But in that same contract, by the way, in the exclusivity contract, Riddell is also allowed to sell fabrications, reproductions. They can make those like little football helmets with the logos, so you can have your ice cream sundae served at any ice cream shop. So are they going to get a cease and desist?
Right. They don't have the same ability or they have a better ability, at least from my perspective, to defend themselves versus when somebody comes at me for having you guys on and tries to intimidate and scare. That's what they do. It sounds like me. It sounds like bullying,
intimidation. Is what
exactly what it is.
Tactics.
Yeah, and a lot
Steven,
of
I would circle back to your earlier question, Cary. 1 second, sorry. I would circle back to your question about what should people do, even if they've signed one of the agreements. And I would say the number one thing is keep all your documents in good order. The other thing is there's that communication system, the LARC system, in which you can interact with TikTok. If you have violations on there or communications on there, screenshot those, because those sometimes mysteriously disappear. The other thing is if you should talk to an attorney. And would be happy. Any one of us would be happy to talk to you. I know Cary's talked to hundreds of people, potentially thousands at this point, and hear your story. And we're going to see if we can help you, because we know that again, as we've alleged in our complaint, this pattern of shutting down people that are offering authentic merchandise purchased through lawful channels, they're being punished. And based on exclusive rights that don't even exist. So it's not fair. And, as attorneys and as a law firm, would like to try to help as many people as we can. We don't know for sure if you have a case until we get to talk to you, but nothing that you've done so far, is going to affect the ability to have your rights reviewed, at least. And this is not your fault. This is, as we've alleged in our complaint, this is a systematic coordinated attack on American businesses.
So, wow. Okay. So for anybody that has not kept records and maybe those things have disappeared. So right now, if they get them in through the LARC system or the messaging system, screenshot and from here on out, save everything. Did I understand that correctly, Mr. Dickey?
Correct.
Yes.
And also download all of your income, your monthly statements that you've had since the inception, since you've started on any platform, not just TikTok.
Understood. So if you're a stream, okay, understood. Now, it was also recommended responding to TikTok by citing for sale doctrine and demanding specific legal basis. If I understand or am reading that correctly, then has TikTok ever actually provided that basis, at least to anybody that's reached out to you guys? If I understand the process of doing that correctly.
So you mean that they're bringing up the issue of the provision in the antitrust statutes? Is that
Well,
what you're talking about? Because there
but
is
I mean,
an exception to the secondary market, which is that is exempt from those. So, at least with the under the trademark and patent laws, there's an exemption on the secondary market. So that's an exception, as well as any trust violations is an exception, right? And here we have both.
is it recommended to respond to TikTok with anything along those lines? Is there something that let's say that I am messaged by them later and they're telling me my page is getting shut down? What specifically should I respond with to them? Should I ask them a certain question or not say anything?
Well, you need to have the basis in writing. Ask them to send you whatever it is in writing, and then proceedings, to support what those allegations are. I would also ask what the source of that is, right? Where did that come from? You find out that, somebody says, well, he's, for instance, in your program here, I can't imagine them saying anything other than, well, you're promoting, further infringement of trademark violations. I mean, come on. But you need to know, and you have a right to know why, so,
Yeah.
and you should have an opportunity before you're removed to explain yourself, but maybe there's certain reasons, constitutional rights.
Yeah. Show your receipts
so
that you bought from Dave and Adams, or that it's a licensed product, and that's why you allow them to be on the platform to begin with, but there's no due process here. There's not.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Are people ever afforded that opportunity? And
No, you're afforded an appeal online, but it's always denied, and that's it. They make it final. There's no one to speak to. There's no, it's all set up by design. But yet, if you're selling Fanatics products, like you have a direct line to Michael over there, or at Fanatics, or you have a direct line to TikTok, and you have this great rep that'll fly out and take care of you. But if you're not under their umbrella, then no,
right.
And the platform was supposed to be a fair platform. That's what it was set up to be. It was working very well, and I think TikTok's a great platform. I just think they need a better management. They need real people to come in and run the company like a real company. If you go on a Yelp, go look, what are they, a 2.0 for their customer service, but it is a great company, and it run properly will provide a lot of businesses, a lot of revenue,
So looking at the Fanatics lawsuit website, it says that you guys are both monitoring and actively litigating all the developments. Can you tell me where those active, or any active, specifically this active case, like where is it at? How far along in the process? Kind of break that down for me to somebody who's just like, all right, this is a lot. I'm not a lawyer. I'm one of the rednecks from the Midwest they're talking about. That's me. So can you Barney it down for me?
Well, I mean, as far as what we can't tell you what we've been doing as far as our investigation, because that's a work product. It's also protected because we have an obligation to our clients. We can't really get into that part of it.
Okay.
But we are investigating a lot of this. We welcome anyone who wants to call around something by us. We could be happy to respond. But yeah, as far as the process, it's an ongoing process. It involves not just speaking with various clients, prospective clients, and contact us, but also people with information. It's also, if someone knows something as well, it's important that they call and let us know. And say,
Yeah.
"Hey, listen, I may be able to help you guys. I was at this meeting, what I thought was just unfair." And people should not worry about any type of retaliation or anything. That'll never happen.
Yeah. And then to answer your question too, I know, I understand. Um, we are filing several more cases.
Mhm.
We plan to file thousands of them if necessary, you know? So, and that's where the mass tort is, you know? I mean, us for right now, we represent over 8,000 people on other matters. So this isn't something that's new to us in order to handle that. But they can go to fanatics.com and there's an 800, and they can fill out the form and someone will get back to them that day within 24 hours. And it's an easy process. All their information is kept very protected and confidential. So even if they are under contract, doesn't matter. We understand that they have to pay their bills until we can get the matter resolved.
It's also important that they know that it's not too late, because this is something where, again, just like the allegations and the complaint that we have on file in California, all of these facts and the coordinated actions that are alleged that the defendants did together to harm the plaintiff, that's new information. This is something that we've had to uncover. And so, a potential claimant shouldn't feel like it's too late for them to get involved. We're still in the beginning stages of this, and ultimately it's going to be decided by the court. And we look forward to getting into the discovery phase and being able to present that evidence to the court.
And keep in mind, it's also ongoing, right? They continue to, like, as Cary used the metaphor, to move the goalpost every single time. So just when they think they got the ducks in a row, they move the goalposts again, and changing the rules mid-game. So you're constantly they're placing obstacles in your ability to even get back on track. So as long as they continue to do that, the statutes haven't begun to run yet.
Yeah, I think you're going to be, Stephen, quite shocked in the next upcoming weeks to see all the new cases being filed and the allegations.
Well, I've got to say, since I've started covering, inside of 2 weeks, the amount of individuals that have reached out to me has been mind blowing. Honestly, I've sent as many as I could towards the website just to say, I am not the person you want to talk to. One of you gentlemen are. But now I realize none of us have a crystal ball, and I understand that this is kind of a are we there yet kind of question. But like, what is a realistic timeline that we might see something back for these guys that have been harmed by these companies?
It's a tough question. It all depends. We're exploring the opportunity of maybe seeking some sort of injunctive relief to at least to preclude further harm to some of these breakers or to ones who have yet to be cut off. While at the same time, for those cases pending or to be filed, the litigation process for something like this is could go on for like 2-3 years or more. I mean, sometimes it'll go on for less than a year, could be shorter. But then you have the processing. They got to get the funding, they got to put it together, they got to sort out any other type of potential liens or if there are any creditors out there that hadn't been paid because they were relying upon the revenue streams coming in that cut off. So there are various factors like that, and each is individual. So it's just there were a lot of factors to consider, but on average, litigation, particularly mass tort, it takes a few years, but in the end, it results in some form of justice.
Understood. Another question I had: the amount of breakers or sellers or whatever we want to refer to everybody that we see on TikTok, we're definitely not seeing, or to your guys' knowledge, those same numbers on other platforms like a Whatnot or on Facebook or in hobby shops around the country, anywhere. You're not seeing the same amount.
Well, that goes to show you the issue here, right? Of some sort of collaboration between Fanatics, TikTok, and the NFL.
But they are 100% interfering on eBay and on Facebook.
Yeah.
They are on Whatnot, 100%. But that's, that's under investigation right now. As Aaron will tell you, I can't speak the legal part of it, but you have to know where you're filing. So it's an investigative test, just like you're doing.
Wow. Oh my goodness. This is mind blowing. And I gotta say, it seems like anytime anybody goes up against one of these big corporations, it never goes anywhere, or it never works because they have all the money and all the power. And I'm rooting for you guys, definitely, but I think the hobby as a whole knows that something's going on here, because once I started talking about it, like I said a minute ago, the amount of people that just came out of the woodwork, are they still just continually doing this every single day? I mean,
Yeah, they are.
That's wild.
Every day we get calls, but just direct the people to contact us.
Mhm.
It's more in numbers at the end of the day. And a lot of people don't realize when they talk, that, like John said, they were at a meeting, right? And that meeting took place, and there were several officers of these companies, right? And they got together and they had a conversation. Well, I mean, that right there is pretty powerful. That's worse than the mafia, right? At the end of the day. So, for them, it may not seem like a big deal, but in
Right. And again, our complaint alleges that meeting occurred and alleges the coordinated action.
yeah. Thank you. So, but in any event, that's kind of the gist of it. But every day we're, people call and we're learning more, and you're peeling the onion back further and further. And I tell you, I don't even think we've as damning as it is, and the evidence we have and that we've seen already. I need a lot more coming. It's been going on for a long time, and they just get used to steamrolling over these little guys. That's it. Which is a shame. The NFL should be ashamed, and they should be embarrassed, and people should boycott them then if that's the way they're going to act. I don't want to support someone who's going to take money off a father and a wife and make people homeless with a 1-year-old child. What kind of American is that? You know what I mean?
Jeez.
But I'm confident that John and Aaron, and we have some other people that are coming in now, which they're all going to be surprised about as well, that they get in front of a jury. This case is done.
I have a lot of commentary, but I'll save it for a video on my own where you guys aren't present, so nothing can be misconstrued, because I have some things I want to say, and I know my followers are going to be all over this. Is there anything else you think is pertinent that we should mention that we might have missed?
Yeah, just don't be afraid. I mean, they act like they're the 800-pound gorillas, but that, every bully has his day, right? And they're bullies, and they need to be, Monsanto was a bully. So was in Johnson & Johnson. And until people stand up and understand they have rights, and they're counting on them being afraid. Look at Big Papa, right? He's thriving. Great.
That's right. And our collective backgrounds is incredible. We've all known each other for many years, and all have been working in the mass tort industry, taking on industries, not just companies, but entire industries.
Yeah.
Some of the like Monsanto and Johnson & Johnson. I mean, I'm glad that you guys have experience with these big companies, because I mean, as far as the hobby goes, I think I can speak for a lot of us that we're just exhausted and we're whipped, and the small guy is just getting hammered, and we're pushed out to the point where unless we have a lot of money, we can't even do this anymore. It's terrible. It's awful.
Well, just anyone who comes to us, we advance the cost. So whatever that cost is, that coming up with a lot of money, and we work on contingency fees. So, because otherwise, if we didn't, no one would be able to afford justice, right? And so that's how on our side, that's how we work it, so that the clients are able to get what they deserve.
So just to clarify, what the contingency, that's a no fee unless we win kind of idea?
Correct.
Okay. Just again, I'm a fireman. I'm slow, and I can only count to the fingers on my hands. So
yeah.
All right. Is there anything else anybody wants to add before we
no,
before we go on our way?
We gotta get this solved in one way or the other. But we're not worried about the NFL or Fanatics or TikTok. So John's right. Looking forward to the day when we can get in front of a jury, right?
That's right.
Beautiful. Well, gentlemen,
thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting us here today.
Of course. Thank you guys for doing this. I know you're all busy, and this is big, and it needs to be in front of people. And I know that there's some barriers and things we have to weave, because it's very important. But I mean, just to give me your time for an hour and go through this, and I think as this starts catching steam, you'll see a lot more channels jumping on it. I'm positive that it's going to start gaining a lot of traction. So again, thank you guys very much for doing this, and not just the interview, but what you guys are doing for the hobby. But speak for all of us. Thank you.